This is 4-minute mile pace. For decades, people believed that the human body couldn't survive a full sub 4-minute mile. Some even claimed that your heart literally would explode. Then in 1954, Roger Bannister ran 3:59.4 and proved them all wrong. And now, 70 years later, we might see that legendary barrier fall again. But this time by a woman. KIPYEGON and Nike are launching the Breaking 4 project, and Nike is the sponsor of this video, and they invited me to help show just how impressive Fate breaking this record would be. Besides talking about how Fate might actually be able to do the impossible and break this barrier, to put this into perspective, I will also show you my own attempt at an all-out mile here on the track and my own Breaking 4 project, where I kind of cheat the laws of physics and still manage to get destroyed. Fate KIPYEGON is already the fastest woman ever to run the mile. She's a 3-time Olympic champion and holds the current world record of 4:07. And she isn't just the fastest woman to ever run a mile, she's a generational athlete who really redefines what's possible every time she steps on the track. What I found the most inspiring and fascinating about her story is how she returned to the very top of the sport after becoming a mother. And now not only wants to inspire her daughter, but all humans to dream big with this extremely hard challenge she has set for herself to lower her own fastest mile with more than 7 seconds. It seems almost impossible, but if it's any woman alive that has a shot on this, it's Fate, with her dominating this distance for so long and daring to keep dreaming and setting this kind of impossible goals. Fate said it herself: "I'm a 3-time Olympic champion, I've achieved World Championships titles. I thought, what else? Why not dream outside of the box?" Okay, so let's put this a bit into perspective. Most people watching my channel see me as a quite good runner, but I'm nowhere near the level Fate KIPYEGON is at. Let's start with what happened when I did an all-out attempt on this track behind me. I was in the best shape of my life, had trained properly, and had a friend pacing me on a bike to help reduce the wind resistance. I paced it quite well in the beginning and was ready to give it my all. By lap 3, everything started to hurt badly. If you haven't tried to run an all-out mile yourself, this is a feeling that sort of needs to be experienced. Your legs basically stop responding, your brain is screaming at you to stop, and you have to work so hard mentally to keep your form and keep moving fast, basically. And as you can see, I was completely done by the time I reached the finish line. It is a brutally hard distance to go all out on, for sure. And my final time was 4:34. And to be honest, that's a time that I'm still quite proud of. I will never be able to run a sub 4-minute mile on the track myself. But as mentioned, I also tried this with a bit of cheating, because I really wanted to get that feeling of running at that crazy pace for a full mile. I basically went to Google Maps, found the steepest road that was still a full mile in length, and decided to do an all-out mile attempt running down that thing. But more on that later, to see if I actually managed to run a downhill sub 4-minute mile. First, let's talk about why a sub 4-minute mile is so hard and whether I think Fate actually has a shot at becoming the first woman ever to achieve this. Breaking 4 minutes in the mile isn't just about running fast. It's about pushing the absolute limits of human physiology. To achieve a time of 3:59, you need to average roughly 15 miles per hour or 24 kilometers per hour. For reference, almost no treadmills go up to that speed. The one I have back here tops out at 20 kilometers per hour, and trust me, that feels pretty fast. The pace you have to run at to actually achieve a sub 4-minute mile approaches VO2 max in even elite runners, and that's the point at which the body can no longer increase oxygen uptake to meet the muscular demand. Meaning that your body will also rely heavily on the anaerobic energy system, and during the mile effort, athletes will start accumulating more and more lactate in the blood as a byproduct to the anaerobic system working really hard. So in order to even have a chance at this, you need both the aerobic and the anaerobic energy systems to be simply exceptional. And you also have to have a great running economy, which refers to how much oxygen is used at a given pace. Faith's running economy is among the most efficient ever recorded, but to break 4 she'll need to maintain a near maximal output while resisting the biomechanical breakdown and the neuromuscular fatigue. And for Faith to break her own fastest mile by over 7 seconds sounds almost impossible. 7 seconds might not sound like much to some people, but when you're already running at these paces for a mile, it's a lot of time to shave off for sure. But I don't want to be one of those people who said it was impossible to break this barrier, just like they did before Roger Bannister first did it. And here's why Faith actually might do it, because this Breaking 4 product isn't just another race. Nike is supporting Faith like they did with the Kipchoge in the Breaking 2 marathon project. Everything's been optimized for this attempt. The pacing strategy, they have Nike's modern best shoe tech, a location in Paris that's known for being fast, meaning the running track material is optimized and the weather conditions will likely be so as well. And she will have a team of pacers running in a formation ahead of her to reduce air resistance. And of course she has dialed in her training specifically for this event, to be at her very peak. And it turns out that the science actually backs her up. This recent study published in the Royal Society of Open Science ran the numbers, and they concluded that with the right optimal aerodynamic drafting, Faith could theoretically run a mile in 3:59:37. So with an optimized pace formation and spacing, this is, at least theoretically, when these smart researchers calculate on this, possible for Faith. But it's a whole other thing to actually execute it. And this is based on the fact that Faith managed to put out the same or better effort as she did when she ran her world record. So yeah, I think this will be incredibly hard. But that's also what makes it exciting. A race where you know the outcome isn't that exciting. That's why I always try to push athletes that I coach to set goals that's almost feels like impossible for them, because that's what actually motivates you to put in all the hard work and give yourself the chance to achieve something great. Now let's see if I actually had a shot at a goal that I thought was close to impossible, running a 4-minute mile going steeply downhill. After I found what I thought was the optimal downhill for this attempt, a road with an 8% average decline, my wife and I drove to the mountains here in Norway to see if I could actually do it. I went out at the perfect pace for getting under 4 minutes, but I remember underestimating this challenge a lot, because somehow I thought that it wasn't going to be that hard since it was such a steep downhill. But I quickly understood that it is just as hard doing an all-out downhill mile as running an all-out flat mile. The downhill only allows me to go a lot faster, because when you go all out and push your body to its limits, it's always going to be a challenge. I had to focus just to keep my legs moving fast enough, and even with gravity helping me, by the halfway point I was already close to my max heart rate and my legs were screaming at me to stop. But I was still on perfect pace to just make it under 4 minutes. At this point I honestly thought I'm not going to make it, and I remember feeling this massive respect for people who can run this pace on a flat track. Because here I was flying down a steep hill and I was barely on sub 4-minute mile pace. I had to dig really deep over the last 100 meters, but with a strong finish I actually managed to do it, hitting a time of 3:56. So technically I run a sub 4-minute mile, but honestly, even on a steep descent, I barely did it, and it took everything I had. My legs were wrecked for days after that all-out downhill mile. So if Faith Kipyegon actually does this, I'll be beyond impressed. It would without a doubt be a historic moment in sport. Now I challenge you to try a 4-minute mile yourself to see how incredibly hard this thing is. And you can watch the event live June 26 on the Nike YouTube channel. And a big thanks to Nike for sponsoring this video and for supporting athletes like Faith, who are out there chasing the impossible. Train smart, have fun, and I will see you in the next video.